Hello, everybody. So I think that we could start. And I will ask our dear colleagues here in the presidency desk to address you and begin this seminar. But first, I would like to give you the hashtag for the Twitter account. And you will see that there is a monitor up there to the left, to your left, in which you can follow the tweeting of the seminar. And the account is #SmartParliament. This is the Twitter account. If you want to see, to follow, please do that. Then I would like to ask our friends here to address you about this seminar. First is Ulrich Hünchen of the European Parliament. He is the correspondent of the European Parliament and the co-secretary of the ECPRD. Please, Ulrich.
Thank you, Carlo. Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure for me to welcome you also in the name of the ECPRD to this new edition of Parliaments on the Net. I have to highlight that this type of seminar attracts always the highest number of participants, which in fact confirms the importance and the topicality of the subject. It is as well amazing to see the continuity of participation among you, which corresponds to one of the ECPRD objectives, to establish communities of experts in parliaments through personal contacts and for real exchange of best practice. Numbering an ECPRD seminar might create some sort of satisfaction, in particular if you have managed to arrive at number 12 as today. Nonetheless, it can be seen also as a permanent challenge for the future. Therefore, it's also a real pleasure for me to announce that the preparations for Parliaments on the Net 13 in 2015 in Brussels at the European Parliament have already started. And this is not all. The German Bundesrat has communicated its intention to host a seminar in 2016. All this makes Carlo very happy, I can imagine. I have to express also my deep gratitude to the Italian Chamber and Senate for inviting us to Rome, for the warm welcome, and for the perfect organization, again. Because this is the 5th ECPRD event in Rome in 5 years, and it underscores impressively the commitment of the Italian Parliament to the ECPRD, and, in view of the upcoming Italian EU presidency, to the European idea to overcome borders and to bring people together. I would like to conclude with an historical anecdote. The Italian Parliament played also an important role in the context of the foundation of ECPRD. First preparations for the network started long time ago, ways before the internet, in 1975, after a lunch on a hillside outside Rome, as the sources say. You have already quite a number of hills inside Rome, so I would like to know which hill that was outside Rome. Bearing this in mind, I would like to thank again our Italian colleagues for the hard work. So I wish you all a pleasant, inspiring, and effective seminar. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ulrich. Now, I would like to give the floor to Mark van der Hulst, who is the ECPRD coordinator of the area of interest, parliamentary practice and procedure. Please, Mark.
Thank you, Carlo. I'm very pleased to be here today at this seminar and very grateful to the Italian Chamber to host this seminar, to its speaker, its Secretary General, and especially to Carlo for organizing this. This is a joint seminar between Parliaments on the Net and Parliamentary Practice and Procedure. You know that within ECPRD we have those 4 areas of interest. And when Carlo invited me to make a joint seminar of this seminar, then of course I had no other choice than to accept, because how could you refuse an offer to do something together with Carlo in Rome? So, in fact, no fun. The reason why we did this together is that about 1.5 years ago, we had a very interesting seminar in St. Petersburg, where, for instance, Gerardo made a contribution to, and we realized that there's a very broad area of interaction between parliamentary practice and procedure and everything which is linked to new technologies. In new technologies, you can do more or less whatever you want, but in a parliament, you have a context. You have a constitutional context, a rules of procedure context, you have a political context. For instance, from a technological point of view, you can, of course, easily make people contribute to a discussion on lawmaking. But can you from a constitutional point of view? Maybe your constitution says, as does the one of my country, that you have representative democracy, which means that those MPs are supposed to represent the whole country. And in that case, there is no reason to give certain persons the right to interfere directly into this process. A very old concept, but it does exist. Another aspect, if your company is Samsung or Apple, it's very easy to develop a homogeneous policy in terms of communication on the internet. In a house, it's much more difficult. If you're starting a discussion, you can start it with one common position from the parliament, but once people start reacting and you start answering, then what are you going to do? Are you going to submit all the answers, possible answers, to your board? And are all those political groups going to discuss what is to be answered to Mr. X, who posted something on the blog? Such are the problems which are linked to parliamentary practice and procedure. And this is not just theory, because I know that I'm not an ICT man and I'm almost ignorant in this field, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to come to. But it's clear that if you do not solve the problems on the level of rules of procedure, constitutional context, and more generally the decision-making in your house, you will never be able to react in a fluent way. Those topics partly were tackled in St. Petersburg. For instance, Gerardo made a contribution on easing the tensions between ICT challenges and parliamentary traditions, which is exactly what I said. I see another Portuguese contribution on e-participation in lawmaking process, a UK one on using online platforms to involve civil society in UK parliamentary practice, an Estonian contribution on modern technologies in legislative process. All these things we discussed in St. Petersburg, but from a parliamentary practice and procedures point of view. And what I am interested in, and that is the reason why we organized this seminar together, although Carlo did most of the work, is precisely this second aspect of the problem. And I'm looking very much forward to this day and to enlighten me on these evolutions. So I hope this will be a very successful seminar, and I thank the organizers and all of you for your contribution.
Thank you very much, Mark. Now I would like to give the floor to Gerardo Casini of the United Nations. Please, Gerardo.
Good morning. First of all, I'd like to thank the organizers who are very kind to me, because every now and then I appear in ECPRD meetings. So let me thank the ECPRD and the two coordinators of the areas of interest, parliamentary practices and procedures, and ICT in parliaments. I also would like to thank, of course, Chamber of Deputies of Italy and the Senate for this organization. Many of you, I think, know me more or less. I am why the United Nations? Because I've been heading an initiative of the United Nations and the Interparliamentary Union for about 7 years, which is called the Global Center for ICT in Parliament. It's the center who had organized World Parliament conferences, drafted the World Parliament reports. So we've been doing, together with parliaments around the world, a lot of work in the area of technology, not only addressing the ECPRD group, but at the global level. So despite some financial difficulties for the center, the IPU and the National Assembly of the Republic of Korea were able to organize the World Parliament Conference 2014. This happened in a few months ago. And one of the, I would say that 5 messages came out from that conference that I think would be relevant for the discussion of this meeting. First of all, that promoting interparliamentary cooperation. I think ECPRD is actually the longer mechanism for interparliamentary cooperation, but particularly for capacity building. I think what we say capacity building is where skills of staff, but also the institutional capacity can be strengthened by relying on the experience of peers. We all know that the level of parliaments is very different, as different is culture and traditions in each parliament. So that is very important. Another aspect was social media. Social media is now addressed by any type of conference, I would say. And today as well, we're going to discuss social media. But don't forget that for some parliaments, social media, because of the digital divide, which is something that we kind of relate always to developing nations, but exists in our countries. I'm Italian, so in our European countries, particularly in villages, in some remote area. And one of the lessons was the SMS or text messages can still be effective for some people. And Botswana is using, for example, text messages to allow people to participate in the debate. The third one is the dedication to some parliaments to democracy. I mean, using technology really to make the parliament open and as much as possible. One of the cases was the Parliament of Korea with the e-parliament system. Fourth aspect, very important, I think is a trend, in this case, the highlight was the establishment of the Commission on Digital Democracy by the Speaker of the House of Commons of the UK, but there are other cases, I would say, a little bit different maybe, but it's the opening up of the Parliament to a dialogue with the society, and so to understand what are the needs of the society and how technology can help further up this dialogue. And the fifth message was, I think, exactly on the topic of this meeting. It was the case of the telematic voting or electronic voting in Spain, which is allowing some members of parliament in certain cases to vote electronically from outside the plenary. And this is an example of where a political debate transformed into a change of procedures, a very important change of procedures, acknowledging that ICT, in a way, can also help the real life of members of parliament, and not only members of parliament, but the political body. So, as Mark said, I was lucky to attend Parliament on the Net in London a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, and the ECPRD meeting in St. Petersburg. And I welcome the innovation, I would think, of Parliament of the Net of this year, very much, because there are two aspects. First of all, it is well rooted in ECPRD mechanism, but I have seen in the list of participants a little bit of external participations. And I think that could be a way for the ECPRD to, in the Parliament on Net, which is not probably the I would say the mandated one, so the area of interest, but opening up a little bit so ECPRD can dialogue with external invitees. And then the joint organization by the two areas of interest. As Mark said, I see that interaction extremely important in a moment where, in my opinion, humble opinion, I'm not coming from a parliament, although the UN may resemble a parliament, but I'm not coming from a parliament. But my impression, studying and looking at parliaments, is that the parliamentary procedures in general have not reflected the change in society, and change in society due by the information society, by the technology. And I think that this group can, as ECPRD is a very strong mechanism, can really do a lot of work that can be beneficial to other parliaments. So in fact, if I look back and I look at my last slide in St. Petersburg, what I said, it was one final consideration was it would be good to assess the level of tensions between parliamentary traditions and ICT challenges. A comparative analysis of standing rule, parliamentary procedures and practices among members of ECPRD could well reveal if enough has been done to integrate technology into parliamentary practices, as well as the distance between the written and customary rules vis-à-vis the current environment and reality of the daily parliamentary business. So in a way, this meeting is a follow-up of St. Petersburg. It's a very nice, tightly with the St. Petersburg meeting. Now, why a comparative analysis? So, and why I have not done so? Simply because the center is, as I said, is in financial constraint. But I did look at some parliamentary rules of procedures. And I pick, of course, the Chamber of Deputies of Italy, being Italian. I pick a little bit the French National Assembly, the Spanish Congress, and the US House of Representatives. Due to languages, sorry, I couldn't pick more, and also time. So I looked at the rules of procedures, simply count the words, and I see that, for example, in the Chamber of Deputies, there were 27 amendments to the rules of procedures in 30 years. So not many, of course, because it's difficult politically to change or amend the rules. But the word electronic appears about 10 times, for example, and maybe a little bit more. And it's mostly about voting procedures. And I think that I found that also in the French Assembly and National Assembly and the Spanish Congress. Internet is mentioned once. Actually, it's the only of the four is the only one the word internet is mentioned. There is something, for example, there is a rule saying that plenary meeting will be televised. I mean, will be transmitted by TV. There is no word about web streaming, for example. So the fact that someone, I mean, the political body said it's televised, in my opinion, should be changed. Or I guess it's an interpretation that, of course, it is allowed to web stream. But I put myself into the citizen place. I mean, if I read the rule of procedure. The French National Assembly, I think 2009 was a big year for the French National Assembly because there are a lot of amendments that included and inserted the word electronic. There are 34 mentions, and it ranges the use of electronic from transmissions of plenary meetings to transmission of documents. So it covers a range of issues. The Spanish Congress, I looked at the rules of procedure, but I also looked at the resolutions of the Mesa, of the Presidency Council, sorry for the translation maybe. And there were two important resolutions actually in 2012. One about the availability of electronic documents on the website. I think Spain is, and correct me please, Spain is, what it's saying is the authoritative documents are those on the web. I mean, citizens can consider those documents on the web like the official documents of the parliament, and they are in the bulletin of the parliament. The second one is what I mentioned before, the telematic voting, allowing members of parliament in certain cases to vote from home or hospital, or I guess from outside the parliament. And I imagine the debate behind that. I mean, I guess it's not a change that has been gone without a debate. So let me just say something about the US House of Representatives. Rule 10, I mentioned only one, Rule 10, Clause 4, D1, I guess, I'm not sure whether it is well quoted, but it says the Committee on House Administration shall establish and maintain standards for making documents publicly available in electronic form by the House and its committees. And in 2011, the Committee on House Administration approved the standards for the electronic posting of House and committee documents and data. And so that was also a change that I am sure our friends and colleagues from the House will address later on. But this is just to demonstrate the variety of approaches and the way the parliaments are addressing these pressing needs that the information society, I would say, and technology is putting on the political body. In my opinion, there are two levels of approaches. I mean, two levels of interventions, I would say. First of all, I would say that we all agree that ICT is a means and it's not an end. The ICT is a means to do things that are mandated by the political body, at least internally. So it supports the parliamentary functions, legislation, representation, oversight, but also, in a second level, it provides greater transparency, openness, accountability, and efficiency. Now, these two levels can be seen as, you know, as internal and external kind of two worlds. For example, let me give you an example. ICT used for the legislative process, so the whole technology behind transmitting documents, I guess that there is no need for the procedures, for the rule of procedures, to say what they have to do. The rule of procedure says exactly what has to be done in legislation, and ICT has to follow and make that process more efficient. But then there are external pressures, for example, participations, transmission of plenary meetings, all that part that is linked to the society, a society that is evolving, a society that is requiring more and more information, now, immediately, and wherever I am. That's, I think, the issue. And parliaments are struggling to make sure that citizens are well aware of what is happening in the parliament. One of the issues that we notice with the World Parliament reports is always, citizens do not know the parliamentary process. That's the replies that we receive from parliaments. And so I think that parliamentary rule of procedures have not addressed so far, if not, coherently, all these aspects. So we have seen, for example, not only participation, but data, how the documents are given to the public. It's not, documents should be available to the public. Well, there are political issues there, because if you say, well, documents should be made available to the public in an open data and reusable format, I would tend to say that that's a political decision. And for a political decision, there should be a need for maybe not a change in the rule of procedures, but maybe a resolution or a deliberation of the President. There are certainly many ways to address that. If a parliament wants to change and include consultations on certain issues, consultations on legislation, consultation on a bill, or I guess that decision cannot be left to the administration unless there is an interpretive way to do so. So there are issues that the political body should take, in my opinion, and those have not been reflected so far in many rules of procedures. And I'm guessing that this is something that more and more will come up in the next year. Let me just conclude by saying that I'm a strong believer of interparliamentary cooperation, as you probably noticed. I truly think that the two areas of interest of ECPRD can work together on this. I really think that ECPRD is probably the only mechanism that could undertake a kind of a comparative analysis of how parliaments in the rule of procedures have addressed these issues. So what are the approaches? Because in many instances, there are commonalities, because information societies is really putting pressure on parliaments in the same way. So now a parliament may decide not to have a consultative process, but if a parliament decides, well, I'd like to do it, then probably the rules of procedures of another parliament that have already included some sort of provisions for that may be helpful for the discussion in parliament. I see that there are some university here, maybe they can give a hand as well. I mean, maybe they can be of support for something like that. And that could be also a way to not to strain too much the human resources of your parliament. So I see this as a very, very delicate and important issues. The second part that I guess and I hope that this meeting will approach is the trend that I mentioned before. There are, because of the request and the needs of civil society, and we call it in the UN civil society, but there is a groups of citizens or associations to obtain data, more and more, increasingly to obtain data that can be reusable, that can be, some parliaments have started to establish a dialogue in a recurrent way. I mentioned the UK Commission on Digital Democracy. This is a speaker commission. But in the US, for example, there are, and again, I hope I can rely on Reynolds to say something later, but they have a legislative data and transparency data conference every year where, there is interactions with a number of associations. There is also a task force on bulk data where they confront, the parliament, talk to several groups to understand what data and what this data can be useful for. So, and I think that there were signs of progress. I mean, things that were raised by civil society that were addressed by the parliament and by the House in this case. So this is something that I attend here, a hackathon, for example, organized by the House by the Chamber of Deputies, which I think it was very healthy in terms of discovering data by I think it was a group of 80 persons who have come up with solutions and nice things with data. But it was a way also to interact and say, okay, we can do this and you can do that, and what would you need more to do better things that citizens would use. So these are my points for the moment, and I am sure that the discussion, I will follow the discussion very, very attentively. I'm always very happy to be in this meeting, so thank you very much, and I wish you a fruitful discussion to which I'll be honored to participate in the next 2 days. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gerardo. Now we are waiting for the speaker that will come, hopefully, to start the proceedings. But while we are waiting, I would like to spend a few words about the procedure, the agenda, today's agenda. And we will start with the, after the address of the speaker, with a coffee break. And then we will start our proceedings with the chairperson, that is the Anna Masera. Anna Masera, she is the head of the communication office of the Chamber of Deputies. And her chairmanship it will be a very tough one, because we have 9 presentations in 90 minutes. So very few minutes for each presenter. And I would kindly ask to spend a few words for each presentation. And in order to allow everybody to speak, and as a matter of fact, there was a 10th presentation, but unfortunately I had to say, please download the presentation in the website, and so the interested colleagues will use your presentation today or in the future for a very long time. As a matter of fact, we have 2 websites for this seminar. One is the normal website within the ECPRD website, a mini site that will contain all presentations forever. Is that right, Ulrich? Yes, right. Forever. Then we will have a second website, that is www.parlamento.it/1070. And in this website, you will find all the presentations and all the videos, because the audio-video recordings will be stored in this website, maybe forever, maybe for a shorter time than forever, but it is very useful, as you know, because after some time you can review the presentations, and with the PowerPoint presentations or the PDF presentation and the video, you understand a lot. And in these 2 websites, there will be loaded all the material that the presenters kindly sent us. We have our colleague from Finland that sent more than 500 pages. Can you raise your hand? Yes, more than 500 pages. And they are quite interesting. And of course, it's aside the PowerPoint presentation or the PDF presentation. So these 2 websites will be very useful. Then this is the social media section. After that, we will continue with the open data section. And I will chair this section of another 90 minutes. And then the social media will have, the presenters will have more times, not only because there are fewer, but also because, unfortunately, Guglielmo Celata is ill, and so he won't come. So we will have these presentations with a slower speed, luckily. Then we will have lunch. We have lunch, and lunch will be near here, so we don't need to go very far. After lunch, we'll have a Camera dei Deputati tour in order to see quickly. We have only 1 hour, the many masterpieces that we have in this building. And after the tour, we'll have a family photo. If possible, I asked for a family photo before, because this is a nice hall. If we assemble all together in the central section, we can have this photo in this plenary hall, in this nice hall. But after we will go, at the end of the tour, we'll go to Piazza del Parlamento, where there is a grand staircase, and we will assemble on this staircase in order to have a nice picture in what is the Basile section of the building. Basile is the important architect that built the second half of this building, a part that is attached beautifully with the Berninian part that was at first designed by the great master Gian Lorenzo Bernini, that designed the first part of the building. Then we will come back here, and we will go all guided, of course, in order to start what is an experiment, the Knowledge Café. Knowledge Café is a way to assemble in smaller groups and talk in an informal way about interesting themes that we will, in order to express ourselves, because sometimes during seminars, some delegates don't have a chance to talk to others because the way we are seated, because there are many presentations, and the Knowledge Café will be a way, an occasion to express face-to-face opinions and debate and discuss interesting themes with some colleagues interested in the same topic. Then we'll have another experiment, full experiments, and we will have a teleconference with Brasilia, the Parliament of Brazil, and because we'll have a tele-presentation by a specialist of social media and public involvement transparency, that is Cristiano Ferri. We checked that the link and the telepresentation worked fine the day, but you never know with, of course, with internet links to Brazil this time. But it will be a nice experiment if everything will go well, and we will use Hangouts, Google Hangouts, for the teleconferencing with Cristiano Ferri about crowdsourcing for lawmaking. So something that sounds interesting. Then that will be the end of the work of today, but not the end of your engagement, because we will assemble in the Palazzo Madama, in the Senate, and the one of yourself that will be interested in visiting the Palazzo Madama building that is full of masterpieces, as you can imagine, and from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. At the end of the tour, you will be bring to the restaurant of Palazzo Madama. So we don't need to go outside Palazzo Madama for dinner. And the dinner is graciously offered by the Senato della Repubblica. And so about 9:30 p.m., this will be the end of the day. Tomorrow, we will assemble here and not in another place as is written in your program, because that was before the other day, but you know how quickly political things change. And so we will assemble here tomorrow for the rules of procedure session that will be chaired by Mark. And we will have very interesting presentations by Italians, by our friend of the US Congress, and so other presentations until about 11:30 and maybe 12. Then we'll have a coffee break. We will have closing remarks by Mark and myself, and this will be the end of the day. So now I think the speaker is about to come, and I think yes, I think I will ask Roberto, just one second. Yes, the speaker, Laura Boldrini, is coming, and so we wait for her to welcome you. Thank you.
Good morning. Sorry for the delay. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to welcome you all here in Rome. On behalf of the Chamber of Deputies, I'm very pleased to address participants in this event organized by the European Centre for Parliamentary Research and Documentation. The seminar will contribute to ongoing discussion on these issues here at the Chamber of Deputies, which have led to further concrete achievement in this legislature. Ever since I was elected President of the Chamber, my main aim has been to ensure that all citizens view the Chamber of Deputies as a familiar, transparent place, a home, in a sense. And to achieve this, Parliament must open up and involve the public. Open up and involve the public. We need to shed a light on its activities, streamline parliamentary procedures, and enhance the accessibility of documents it produces and acquires. Citizens expect urgent actions along these lines from us as we pursue change in the political establishment and seek to establish a healthy political system so as to bring people closer to these institutions. We are essentially taking a three-pronged approach based on reform, innovation, and access to information, all of which imply opening up, as I said, to the outside world and encouraging public participation. As regards our reform agenda, the Chamber of Deputies, in cooperation with representatives of all the political groups represented in Parliament, is undertaking a major effort to modernize its own rules of procedures. In the context of this complex effort to reform, we are devoting major attention to the need for public participation and access to information. For instance, reform proposals envisaged establishing a new procedure which would ensure that Parliament actually discusses legislative proposals submitted through citizens' initiatives. I believe that if we truly wish to improve our relations with citizens, we need to actively engage with their opinions and with their proposals. We also need to respond to the demand for greater transparency and for simpler procedures in parliamentary activities, which may sometimes seem difficult to understand. New technologies can certainly play an important role in this respect, whether in the form of a web broadcast of the sitting of the House or the online publication of the documents Parliament is discussing. Against this backdrop, the Open Data Programme of the Chamber of Deputies is contributing to the drive towards increased transparency, making a wealth of knowledge available to citizens who may use and explore it. It is a new way, yes, it is a new way of enabling access to information which all public authorities should strive to implement. A few weeks ago, we began exploring the potential of this new approach with the Chamber of Deputies hosted a Code for Italy, an hackathon, or if you prefer, an IT marathon, attended by over 150 software developers who worked on 21 applications based on the reuse of open data. So this was the first time, I think, that not only here, but in a parliamentary institution was organized such an event. I'm really happy also to see some of the hackathon participants here at the seminar. One of the initiatives on this topic, which is worth mentioning, took place last April when the Chamber of Deputies hosted the first bar camp the Bar Camp, an event designed to bring participants together to generate a series of ideas, a series of projects, proposals, suggestions for improving Italy's performance in the European Digital Agenda benchmarks. Proposals, assessments, and comments were put together thanks to a shared digital platform, which the Chamber of Deputies will be using from now on for future public consultation and listening campaigns. During the present legislature, the Chamber of Deputies has also adopted a new communication policy, which has involved integrating the most popular forms of social media into its information toolbox. This one also was a sort of a little small revolution. Accordingly, in addition to the web TV service, it is now possible to follow parliamentary activities on YouTube, or to remain constantly updated about the latest parliamentary news by following the Montecitorio account on Twitter. I'd like to conclude by making a more general point. As I'm sure you are aware, the use of new technologies and the web raises a series of complex legal and political questions, which has to be highlighted. Yes, so these technologies have been a powerful force in the development of modern democracy. We have seen this in the Arab Spring, and now also in the recent event in Ukraine. Yet, they also pose new challenges, some of which we could never have anticipated. The enormous quantity of data on the web makes the protection of privacy increasingly difficult. The protection of privacy increasingly difficult. In this respect, the recent ruling of the European Court of Justice in relation to the Google search engine and the right to be forgotten marks an important development, at least as far as the European legal system is concerned. The Chamber of Deputies recently acted in this spirit by striving to ensure a fair balance between the right to be forgotten and the fundamental principle of the public's right to know about parliamentary activities. New technologies and their increasingly widespread use pose unprecedented challenges for us, unprecedented challenges. They are not always used to enhance knowledge and expand the sphere of freedom, but may, on the contrary, be deployed to jeopardize the freedom of others, or worse, to spread hate and violence. It is therefore vital to also develop educational programs and to raise awareness about the risks, as well as to remain as vigilant as possible against the improper use and abuse of new technologies. Finally, the discussion regarding net neutrality. It is a timely reminder that a balance must be found between demands of commercial users and free and equal access to the internet. Next week, we shall be considering those topics and the question of rights in the internet age. And the Chamber of Deputies is due to host a seminar with the thought-provoking title, An Internet Constitution? ? The idea underpinning the seminar is that the coming months during the Italian presidency of the EU, the European Union could and should play a major role in defining the fundamental rights which should be part of an Internet Constitution, and which should certainly be the object of a public debate in this day and age. We look forward to the contributions and ideas which will be proposed at this event, so that we may draw on them as we seek to put new technology at the service of Parliament and democracy. And, as always, we shall strive to enhance transparency, citizens' participation, and the protection of individual rights. Thank you, and I really hope you have a fruitful day.
Thank you.
All the best. Thank you.
Now we have the coffee break after the very nice, interesting word of our speaker, Laura Boldrini. Thank you.